key is about matching you with the right franchise. And the key that I tell my clients, learn about it. Take the time to learn about it. See if it checks off those boxes. All right. Because if you take the time to learn, maybe you find something that makes sense for you, or maybe you don't, but at least you've taken the time to learn about it and make an informed decision.
Even if it doesn't happen in the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to happen at some point. It's historically happened every X amount of time. It's part of living. Most of our lifetimes, we'll see at least 2 or 3 recessions. Let's go through like 7 ideas, 7 industries or franchises that you have found to be, that you're like, those are the 7 categories that you're telling people, hey, these don't get impacted nearly as much by recession. Recession. Is it happening? Is it not happening? I don't know. You guys know my opinion. I've been pretty clear about it. I think something's going to happen. Well, we always talk about online businesses, and I kind of tend to forget that there's this entire world, okay? It's a massive world of opportunity that's not necessarily your typical online business. And it just so might be that that's the world where you get the most protection from a recession or no recession. What if you get a business? It doesn't matter. If we have a recession, great. If we don't, great. You don't care as an owner. Now, also, our guest today, I'm gonna steal his thunder a little bit. There's a number he shared with me that's fascinating, and he's gonna talk about this today. And that is that the type of businesses we're gonna discuss in this interview have a 3 times more likely chance of succeeding than any other business. So here you go. You have an opportunity to get recession proof. You have an opportunity to have a 3x chance to success rate. And then personally, I'm going to be picking this person's brain a little bit because I have actually been looking at this class of investment or this type of business, but I want it to be passive. I just want to buy it and I don't want to worry about it. I don't want to show up. I don't want to do things. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little ideological. Let's find out. We've got the person in the house with over 30 years of experience, literally began their career in this type of world, in this type of investment, and in this type of business. And now they are available as a consultant and they're gracious enough to be here. Marty Greenbaum. Marty, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Welcome to the Onyx and Gala Show. And for those of you who are wondering, what are we going to talk about? You ready? Franchising. I know. Onyx and Gala talking about something that doesn't have to do necessarily with the internet. Who'd thunk it, right? But I'm fascinated. I was telling Marty before we started the episode, I said, Marty, this episode might be more for me than my audience because I'm truly very interested in this topic. So probably going to ask better questions because of it. Marty, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here. Love to share my background and knowledge of franchising with the world. I know you got a great audience, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, Marty, I mean, right out the gate, your experience in this world is insane. I mean, yourself from your family was in this business. You did hundreds of stores opening through them, and then you went on to become an advisor, marketing consultant to over 120 of the top franchise brands. Here's the deal, and I want to punch right to the gut, right? Before I want to get into your story and everything, but we got people thinking right now. I know what my audience is thinking. Oh, franchise, that's so 30 years ago. Who does franchising anymore? But I know that there's a lot of reasons to look at it because I've done some research. So why are you so passionate about franchises? Why is your entire business and life about this? I'm kind of curious.
Well, listen, what's great about franchising is so many people out there, they've been in their careers for so long. Most of the people I work with, they're looking for another way to generate income, build their wealth. And you know what? Careers are very limiting nowadays. And, the days of being in a career for 20, 30 years, I mean, who does that anymore? It's so hard to find that. And the guys that did that, they're in their 50s now saying, I have no job security. So the fact is, franchising allows people to get into a business where they may never even realize they could get into. Here's an important or really unique stat that's interesting. 80% of the people that I work with and help find the right franchise, they get into an industry where they had no experience before. But you know what? If you have a certain amount of experience in business and you've managed people or you've been in sales or you have operational background, then you could use those skills and transfer them to a franchise that makes sense for you. So franchising is great because it allows you to succeed because they got everything figured out. Okay. But it's very important to really find the franchise that's going to be right for you and that's going to help you achieve your goals.
Okay, actually, but before we make assumptions and jump right into this, couple of rapid fire questions. First of all, couple of rapid fire, and then the big question I'm going to get to for everyone listening is, what is franchising? So, if you're thinking, what are they talking about? It's okay. We're going to get to that. I have a lot of listeners that are international, that are not from the United States. It's owning a franchise business an opportunity outside the United States as well?
Oh yeah, globally. There's great franchise organizations around the world. Here in the United States, there's an organization called the International Franchise Association. It's the association of all major franchises, here in the US, and it's pretty much the largest franchise association globally. But there's franchise associations in Asia, in the Middle East. I mean, they're all around the world. Franchising is bigger than ever. It really is.
What is franchising? So in a summary, what does that mean? Yeah, what is it?
So think about this. You've heard of McDonald's and Subway, right?
Yep.
So, and as everybody, if you say franchising, people are going to think, okay, I have a brand, I have an operating system, I got to follow some system and standards, and I have to pay royalties because, definitely have to pay royalties to the organization. I want you to think about it this way, okay? Somebody comes up with a great idea about doing something, and obviously you think of McDonald's, the guys, came up with a different way to make hamburgers, and they were unique and fast, and, but what they do is they want to expand nationally, but they don't have the money to expand nationally. So franchising allows these entrepreneurs that have a great idea to expand nationally using other people's money, okay? So and this is an interesting point that I have to make because I share this with my clients, what a franchise organization truly is they're in the business of royalty collection. See, when you join a franchise and you're a franchisee and you're generating revenues based on a system and a brand and a model that a franchisor has created, all right, you're paying these royalties, and it doesn't matter if you're senior care, automotive, education, IT, a home service company. Franchise companies are in the business of royalty generation. They want you to succeed. So the key takeaway is this. If I was the franchise company and I had 300 locations and I'm getting royalty revenues, maybe 6-7% of gross revenue, that's what you pay, and then I'm going to look at every aspect of that business model and I'm going to distill it down to make it as successful and profitable as it could be. So when I talked in terms of success rates, just know the reason why there's higher degree of success rates in franchising is because you have so many minds on this business model, not only the corporate team, but it could be 300 franchisees all working the model, all working towards making it more profitable and looking at every aspect from marketing to technology to systems, et cetera. So it's a unique model where you get to be part of a family. And yes, you pay royalties, but most of the time it's a great value. Okay. Not every franchise. I wouldn't say just buy any old franchise, but there are some that are definitely better than others. I hope that helps.
I know it helps a lot. You're going to laugh at this. I got a funny story. So I got really excited about franchises in 2018. I have all this net wealth that's being generated. And I was like, okay, I want to put this wealth to use. I started looking at some of the financials from franchises. I was like, wow, the cash on cash return and the overall return on capital is looking pretty good. And, these franchises individually, they carry value, right? So if you build one, you can sell these later on. And I liked what I was seeing. I'm not a fan of the idea of just putting money into funds. It doesn't resonate with me as an entrepreneur. It doesn't excite me, I guess I could say. And at that time, I wasn't really big into real estate. I am now. I've done really well with real estate, but it's still not exciting. It's like, I like business. So I started looking at it, and I fell in love with the franchise Massage Envy. I not from a business standpoint, knew nothing. I was a member. I used to go there. I looked at the financials. I was like, wow, this is cool. I liked the idea. It's not a cash business. You don't have to be, I was thinking you don't have to be there in the morning or whatever. And like, I'm running all the math. And I remember 2019 early, I got aggressive. I was like, that's it. I want to buy one. And they wouldn't even consider me. They're like, your area is full. Like we don't have any good spots. The closest one you can consider is 3.5 hours away. I was like, well, no, right? So I was really disappointed. And it's just funny enough, I was really disappointed. And like 7 months later, COVID happened. And I was like, ooh, that was probably an interesting bullet it dodged for some time. I want to talk about franchises with you at a macro level. One of the questions I do want to ask you eventually is, how does someone pick the right franchise? But the first objection that I think comes to even my mind or to the minds of many people listening is like, you have to have a lot of money. Because you mentioned even McDonald's, Subway. I mean, some of these are 6-figure entries. Let's just like, are there franchises that are a lot less costly? Or let's say I come to you and I'm like, I want to have a franchise. Is there a minimum number that you say, hey, if you don't have at least this much capital, it's going to be really hard to get you into a good franchise?
Well, listen, there's franchises at all levels. So there's some as low as $10,000, like a travel franchise. All right. You could sell cruises and have your own franchise. Are you going to make 100,000 plus a year on that? No. Okay. But the fact is that when I work with clients, first of all, I tend to feel that if you're wanting to make like 100 plus, you're probably going to need 50,000 in liquid funds or, cash. And you probably need a net worth of about at least like 250, 300,000 is a little bit better. Now, franchises, they all have financial qualifications. They're going to have a net worth qualifier and they're going to have the liquid capital qualifier. You asked me about, the different types and investment levels. There's so many different types of franchises with almost 4,000 franchises in the US. There's everything from, there's automotive to healthcare to senior care, food, fitness, IT, tons of different service franchises, everything from restoration to cleaning companies to repair companies to real estate related. And then you have things like staffing. I mean, it really runs the gamut. But I'll tell you something. You don't have to get into what I call retail franchise and spend $500,000 to $1 million investment. You could get into most service companies. And what I like about service companies, number one, they're hot right now. But most service companies, you could get in, the initial investment is between 100 and 200,000. Okay. And what's good about service franchises is sometimes they're home based. Sometimes you could start out of a small office or a little warehouse space and you grow it. But does a service company minimize the amount of revenue you could make? Like, how do they compare against larger retail? It's amazing what some of these service companies do. They could do $1 million or more. So you could grow and scale the business. That's what I like about that. But there's so many different levels, so many different ideas. So, you just have to start looking and learning about the industry.
Yeah, well, we're gonna kind of get into that. So I wanted to get that out ahead. There's a lot of people that are listening right now that perhaps are immediately thinking, I don't even have, $20,000, $30,000 liquid. Listen anyways, okay? And learn, because the day may not be far that you will. One of the things I'm going to be asking Marty about today is I want him to give us a few examples. Marty, if you don't even mind, eventually in a few minutes, like 7 of his best recession-proof franchise ideas or topics. And then I'm going to say, hey, 7 of his best passive income franchise ideas, because what we're going to do is put me to the test. So I'm going to say, Marty, these are the things, this is what I have. These are the things I'm good at. This is what my life looks like. This is what I have access to. What do you think? Where should I go? So it's going to be a fun exercise for you to learn from. I will tell everybody who's listening to this to one thing. When I went and researched this in 2017, 2018, there are a lot of companies agencies, consultants, brokers a lot. And I got spooked completely. It was scary because you're dealing with big money. You don't know who to trust. And so that's one area where I really liked Marty, was just the references and the places where he came from and his background and his experience. I've always said you don't make it multiple decades in an industry by being a bad person in that industry. You typically get weeded out. So that's why you're really, if you're listening, keep listening, because you're in for a treat here. So
let me share something that's important.
Please.
People need
Yes.
to know too. You know, when I work with people, I say to them, most people have never done this before. Okay. So if you're going to go down the route of finding a franchise and investing in a franchise, number one, you don't need to be sold. Okay. I don't sell people. But the key here is this. The key is about matching you with the right franchise. And the key that I tell my clients, learn about it. Take the time to learn about it. See if it checks off those boxes. All right. Because if you take the time to learn, maybe you find something that makes sense for you, or maybe you don't, but at least you've taken the time to learn about it and make an informed decision. So it's important to learn, and there's a lot of resources and this and that. There's a lot of content online. In regards to working with consultants, there's all kinds of consultants, just like anything. There's people that have commission breath, right? And then there's people that really care about the success of their clients. I'm here to educate people and I guide them. I'm not here to sell or pressure.
How do you charge? Is it like an hourly fee, or do you?
No, it's unique. This is how, and most consultants charge the same way. But the fact is that think of real estate, right? If you're buying a house using an agent, the buyer doesn't pay the commission. The seller pays the commission, right? So in what we do as consultants, we help you. You never pay me a penny. If I find a franchise that you decide to move forward with, then I receive a referral fee from the franchise company. Doesn't affect what you pay. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm about finding the right fit and doing the right thing. So, listen, not everybody's like that, but overall, there's some great people in this industry. And, this is important for anybody who's looking to do this. Nobody could afford to make a mistake in picking the wrong franchise or getting fooled. It would be create too much hardship on most families, so, that's the way I look at it.
Great. All right. So I really liked, you said earlier, you caught my attention with it, and I kind of like this episode's becoming about that since you said it, was this recession proof. Recession is a topic. It's looming over our heads. Even if it doesn't happen in the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to happen at some point. It's historically happened every X amount of time. It's just part of living. Most of our lifetimes we'll see at least 2 or 3 recessions. Can you, let's go through like 7 ideas, 7 industries or franchises that you have found to be, that you're like, those are the 7 categories that you're telling people, hey, these don't get impacted nearly as much by recessions.
Okay, well, let's start with hair care, something I know nothing about. Okay.
I just got that.
So, no, actually, I know a lot about it. Well, think about it. People are going to get their haircuts every 4 to 6 weeks. Guys, we're going to go to Great Clips, Sport Clips, Supercuts, right? Hair care is a great franchise opportunity. I'll tell you why it's great. Number one, very semi-absentee. Most of these big organizations say, listen, don't quit your job, keep your job, hire a manager. They'll hire the people that cut hair. You could go onto the dashboard and check and see how things are going. And guess what? If you stop by 3 to 5 hours a week, that's probably more than enough. Okay. Those investments are typically $350. Okay. Maybe you come down with $100 cash, you get an SBA loan for the balance. They're very, let's face it. If I ask most people, how long you've been, especially guys, how long you've been going to the same barbershop? I always get like 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, right? So again, is that a business you're going to be a millionaire over? No, but if you own 5 or 10, that's the way you what's great about those is you could scale them, right? Okay. You want the next one?
Yeah, let's go. I'm going to come back and ask them. I do. I'm going to come back, but I'm intrigued right now. So I want to get through the 7. So I'm loving this part of the.
Let's talk about. I'm going to give you a crazy one. Pet care right now. Okay. During COVID, what happened? So many dogs got bought, puppies, right? The pet care industry is booming, especially everything related to dogs. So right now, that's something people think about where like the level of people that take care of their dogs now compared to like 20 years ago. They're part of the family now. And guess what? With less people having kids or people having less kids out of worries about where we're headed as a country, guess what? They're buying more dogs. So there's dog training, there's dog daycare, there's dog pet supply stores. There's a really cool one that it's like a gym for dogs. I mean, people want to have more experiences with the dogs. So dogs is a good one.
You see that TikTok guy that went famous for he has a van with a doggy treadmills in the back. And I was fascinated. He drives up to your house, you pop your dog, and these dogs love the treadmills. They just start running for a while. And then he just brings them back into your house, and he was making a ton of money. And it's funny you mentioned, people buy, like I have joked with some of my own family members where I'm like, God, if I could only be a dog in your family, I think they get better care than the humans in the family in many cases. About how much does it take to get into something like that? Rough ballpark. You gave a range.
Listen, if you, the pet boarding and grooming places, those are expensive. They could be about $700,000. Okay. But guess what? You could get into a dog, like there's a dog obedience training franchise. There's 2 of them actually, where they come to your house. Like you would hire people. You could be a passive owner. You could hire people and they could get certified to train dogs. The investment's about 100 to 150 in there, 1 to 150. And you hire people to go to people's homes, train dogs, very profitable business, low overhead, work from home, right? They market, they get referrals from vets and pet stores, and you could have something like that you get into this really cool pet. You ever seen dogs like jump through hoops and go through obstacle courses and in and out of tunnels and up and down stairs and all kinds of crazy stuff, on these shows sometimes on TV? There's a franchise called Zoom Room that I really love. And the investment's like $300,000-$400,000. But imagine people going there and being able to train your dog how to do all that fun stuff and being in that community and culture. And I think that's a really neat one too.
You know what that reminds me of? So I just took my 9-month-old baby. Well, she's 10. Actually, shoot, she's 10 months today as a filming day. And we took her to, thank you. We took her to a little thing called a little gym. And we were going to sign up for a membership. It's 45 minutes once a week for her to go roll around on mats. And it's $150 a month. And I'm still sitting here with my jaw on the ground because I pay $30 a month for my gym membership and I get a heck of a lot more than mats. And all I could do when we left and signed up for it, I just looked at my wife and I was like, I gotta go look this franchise up. We should buy one of these. The numbers have got to be amazing.
That's another one of the recession-proof franchises. We could roll into that. All right. First of all, there's a number of those like places where you take toddlers and and there's activities. Okay. And in this space, there's like, maybe people heard of Mathnasium. I mean, there's like 1,000 of them out there. Kids always have a problem with math, right? So, but there's some great franchises out there. Here's an interesting one. There's a brand called Ivy Brook Academy. Okay. You know how, I don't know if you know this or the listeners know this, but in the first 5 years of your development, so ages 0 to 5, you learn the most and you're the most impressionable. The human mind, that's when it really forms, like in that early stage. So if you could expose your children to more curriculum in learning and actually not just here, play with this ball and throw it against the wall and go, instead of, physical activities are good, but if you can expose your children, young children, to learning. So there's this kind of preschool that does that. They have Montessori curriculum. They start them very early. It's regimented, but it really helps these young children excel in their life like never before. You start them young, you give them an edge the rest of their life. So
What
that's a
what,
neat
what
franchise.
do you call this category?
Oh, just child education.
Child education. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so that's number 3. About rough, can you get into it for 100K, 200K, 300K? I know there must be so many levels, but like, what's the?
Oh, that one's a little bit more because they have it's a bigger, you got classrooms, right? So that may be closer to 5 or 6, you know.
Okay, got it.
So,
All
but
right.
let's now roll into automotive.
Okay.
All right. So doesn't matter what the recession is going to do, people are going to have their car break on them, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to change. The volume of cars that break down is not going to change. And we're not going to get to the point where we really have a, significant percentage of electric cars for the next 10 years. Okay. So all the like Meineke, Mako, those full service brands, great investments. All right. The know what I like oil change still. Okay. Oil change is going to be around for a long time. It's a very semi-absentee model. So I like oil change. So automotive, there's a lot of different options from aftermarket to painting to all kinds of things. It's a really neat, tires, big O tires and things like that, right? So automotive, very recession proof.
About how much to get into that rough starting point?
Well, listen, you could get into an oil change business for around three to 400,000. You get into full service, you're talking more like 4 to 5.
Got it. All right. That's 4 so far. Let's move into number 5.
Medical.
Medical.
Okay. So obviously, medical is one of these emerging brands too. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you didn't have half the brands you have today. But medical, it used to be people would be like, do I have to be a doctor to own a medical franchise? No, you don't. All right. I don't know how many listeners have ever been to the Joint. Okay. That you go, you pay a membership fee, they do a quick adjustment, you leave. What a simple model that grew to 1,000 units in over, a period of 3-4 years. It was amazing what they did. All right. But there's nowadays, people are getting, I don't know if you're aware of the IV drip concepts where you could go in and get revitalized by the drip. There are, check this out, mental health franchises. Okay. So think about this. Where are we with an issue of mental health today compared to where we were 20 years ago or even 10
Holy
years
smokes. It's like its own epidemic. Yeah, it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So guess what? Mental health franchises, that's one of the hottest franchises that's out there. It's crazy. And you don't have to be the therapist. You hire a lead therapist. It's very semi-absentee. They hire other therapists. This franchise, they do all the back office and billing, and they make it easy. So that thing's gone like wildfire. And there's like physical therapy, pain relief, and all those things tied into also like the med spa, the people feeling better about themselves, whether they get cool sculpting or Botox or things like that. There's always somebody who's always worried about what they look like and how they could stay young. As a matter of fact, one of the franchises I work with is called Forever Young. So I mean, people want to stay young. So that's a.
And what's the investment for that roughly starting point in one of the?
Well, listen, it varies depending. The mental health franchise is about 300,000. Most of those an IV drip concept maybe closer to 2, and then the Forever Young a little bit more. They're closer to 5 or 6. Okay, but again, let's say you get an SBA loan. Usually, most people could qualify for 80% of the loan, right? So if you're looking at a $400,000 investment, it could be 100,000. Now, keep in mind that some of these, if a business does $1 million in revenue and that's around 20%, you're making 200 grand a year. So what if you were able to invest, and this is just a rough example to give your listeners an idea, okay? What if you invested 100 and you were able to create a business? Now, not year one, it takes a like any business, it's going to take a couple, 3 years to get your business to maturity. Okay. But what if you got to maturity in a few years and you're netting, 150, 200 a year? Now, if you were to put $100,000 in the stock market, what would be considered a great return on investment? 10,
12%. Yeah, 10,
12%, right? Okay. So that gives you guys, a little bit of idea what's possible, right? Now, could you, like you said, you'd like to just invest it and not worry about it? Not quite a reality. There is going to be some need to manage this business, but there's different levels of that.
Well,
So let's go.
yeah, and I'm just gonna say, to be fair there, so people love to say like real estate is passive. And I have some of the most passive real estate possible. It's called triple net. And my wife always corrects me because she always laughs and says, yeah, it's passive for me, but she's the one dealing with all the regular issues. So she manages our entire real estate portfolio, and there's always something going on. Now, we're never on site really much. It's not like, we're not slogging away at things. Just things popping up. You got to address an issue or something.
That's why I do land.
Yeah, there you go. I completely hear you on the fact that when I say passive in my head, I'm also not like, oh, don't remember it, don't think about it. I just mean more like, I'm not quitting my day job and I'm not sitting here stressing about it all the time. But yeah, so we're through 5 now. Let's go to number 6 for passive. I mean for recession proof.
Well, listen, I have a number of these now. Let's talk about home services. It's a broad category. Okay. There's like home improvement where you're doing like flooring and painting and, and your kitchen remodeling and things like closet remodeling, garage remodeling, right? So there's home improvement, there's repair. Okay. And I'll get into some details. Repair is things like plumbing, heating, air conditioning, talk about recession resistant, right? Now like HVAC, bigger than ever, right? Because our country's getting so hot, the weather's changing, all right? But there's neat ones also, like gutter repair. I mean, it's a very profitable business, gutter cleaning, gutter shields, gutter repair, unbelievable business, right? You have typical, like what I call cleaning and maintenance, things that you get all the time. You could own a, residential cleaning, but I like things like carpet cleaning, dryer vent cleaning, things that mosquitoes, crazy, but a great business because, it's a recurring revenue. So those things I like there are some service businesses that, somebody gets it done once and they're not going to do it for years. And then there's other service companies where, you spray for mosquitoes every 2-3 weeks and it happens, depending on where you live, from 6 to 9 months a year. All right. Pest control, things like that, recurring revenue. I love that. There's restoration companies, right? We're having more floods and bad weather than ever. Restoration companies, what's great about restoration? Guess what? Insurance covers it, right? So I can't tell you how much they charge with restoration companies to bring in those things to dry up your house and they mitigate the mold and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that there's some great categories, and these are mostly recession proof, because think about what's going in the right now in this housing market, right? New houses are not being sold. And when that doesn't happen, you know what happens? People say, well, they're going to need repairs no matter what. If something breaks, they need a plumber, whatever. But the other thing is they're going to look at their house and say, how do I make it a little bit nicer? Right.
We're using our houses a lot more now too, right? So much work from home. So we're in this house using it more wear and tear.
So yeah, I mean, so there's all these different brands. I mean, an investment in a service company typically is in that $100,000 to $200,000 range. Okay. Some people say one of the challenges is getting the right people to work for you. Okay. Now, certain franchises, the way they're positioned, like one of my brands where I have several of my clients looking at now is called SprayNet. They're a painting franchise. You would think that there's a million painters out there, but I want you to understand. Let's say you had a painting franchise, okay? and there was an independent painter, ABC or Marty's Painting. Okay, so the fact is that franchises, the big difference here is they know how to market, they know how to generate leads. This franchise that I just mentioned, SprayNet, guess what? They do all the marketing for you, and they don't do just okay marketing. All right. So I'll give you a metric that I know from them. On average, in the service industry, it costs $79 to generate a lead for someone to go out and give them a bid to do painting. All right. This company is able to generate a lead for $23. So imagine your business model compared to an independent that doesn't have the time, the expertise, or resources to do the marketing, where you have this engine behind you of hundreds of franchises, where there's a big department generating leads for you at a fraction of the cost it would generate to, it costs to typically generate leads, and they handle it for you. And there's a call center answering the calls and booking the appointments. Now, put that in contrast to Marty's Painting. This guy who's working his butt off, running from job to job and not having consistency and having issues and this and that. There's so many advantages that the right franchises offer. I hope that was a good example for you.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I love it. We're on to the last one, the 7th recession-proof industry, you would say, for franchises.
The 7th one. Let me see.
Yeah, we got quite a few good ones, so yeah.
Well, senior care. I would have to say senior care. Okay. Right now, baby boomers, they're turning 65 at an incredible rate, and there's going to be more seniors than ever over the next 10 years, right? So senior care franchises, they're exploding because there's so much demand. Talk about demand. Not only the senior care. Now, in senior care, there's a couple different options. Let me share with you. First of all, senior care, the traditional model is, hey, grandma's at home and she needs someone to come in a few days a week or once a day to make sure she's taking her medication or, getting something to eat. Somebody helps with laundry or runs an errand for her or whatever that may be. That's, home care services, in-home care, right? There is also franchises where, eventually grandma may not be able to stay at home and she needs to go stay at some facility. Maybe she has dementia and there's dementia, specialty facilities. Maybe she just doesn't like being at home alone because grandpa died 2 years ago and she just needs to be around people and the kids don't have the time or live in another state. So they find either a senior living community or maybe one that offers more like nursing services, a higher level of care. Well, there is like a matchmaker franchise for that. That's like under $100,000. You become a matchmaker. You help people find the right facility for your loved one. So that's a neat franchise. And then finally in that space, there is accessibility. Like people at some point, they don't have the mobility they used to. Maybe they're wheelchair bound. Maybe they need a lift, a ramp, stairs. They need their house converted. So all these things are really hot right now in the world of, senior care. And those investments, again, low investments, typically $100,000 to $150,000 to get into senior care, sometimes less. That accessibility a little bit more, but that industry's booming.
Yeah. Wow, Marty, that right there, just that. If we ended the podcast now, which I'm not going to, I'm not letting you go that easily. Just right there was just, I don't know how much that knowledge was worth to those of you who are listening right now. That was just pure blunt experience. Dive into the top spaces, including next to them, kind of what it costs to invest. What I want to do next, Marty, is I do want to transition into kind of almost using myself as the case study where I'll tell you like, hey, here are the things I'm good at. Like almost like role playing a little bit of what, maybe a call for someone would go like with you if they called you the first time. Before I do that, in the middle of it, and by the way, again, thank you for that list. It was incredible. We started talking about numbers a little bit, like return, and I want to get back to that conversation. But before I do, I want to disclaim it to everyone who's listening right now. Remember, business is business. There is no guarantees, and these are sizable investments. And so you never listen to a single thing we say here and run off and make an investment, because again, a business is a business. There's a lot of risk involved, and you want to make sure you're getting sound advice from people that really know, getting legal advice, accounting advice, making sure you are equipped to do it. So we're just talking in the most generalities, and we might even be talking about case scenarios that are really not typical at all, right? They could be the better cases. So
let me share this with you in regards to the right due diligence and touching on that. First of all, most franchisors, they don't provide what I'm going to call, earnings claims, true earnings claims. Like every franchise has a franchise disclosure document. So the FTC requires them to disclose a number of things. There's item 19, which is financial performance. Okay. You're going to find that most of them have financial performance, but they may have a certain segment of their franchisee population. So you may be able to get a pretty good idea. Okay. But again, it may be based on, hey, here's what the top 25% do, or here's where the top 25 in the middle or the next level is. So they have always an asterisk or two by this information. The other thing, like people say, well, how do I get to the true numbers? I say, well, you have to speak with existing franchise owners. If you're going to do your due diligence right, you're going to have conversations with existing owners and really sit down and try to get the right questions answered. Okay. Now, every franchise in their process, they're going to have like a part of it that's called validation. So they're going to give you, 3, 5, whatever franchisees, hey, reach out to these people. Of course, listen, I think it's common sense to, hey, search out other franchise owners that aren't on their list and try to engage in some conversations. And I always tell my clients, hey, it's really smart to go visit a store. If you could go experience it firsthand, think about how valuable that will be. So maybe you go visit, maybe you hang out for a half a day. Maybe you even talk to customers and say to you, imagine talking to a customer and saying, what do you like about this, product or service in the store? And how often do you frequent? And, so it's interesting. There's a lot to this due diligence. Going back to the numbers, I was just giving a ballpark. You're right. But scenarios like that, not out of the question. Okay. It's not pie in the sky. Okay. But you have to find the right franchise.
100%. And I, guys, if you're listening and you're seeing both Marty and I be sensitive to this topic, because it's an important topic to be sensitive to, because a lot of people out there will blow a lot of steam. And so I'm just saying, here's what got me interested into it. And what Marty is basically saying is, hey, that's not completely ridiculous and impossible, but everyone is different. So what got me interested, it was exactly kind of the example Marty gave, where I was like, wait a minute. So here's a franchise, and at that time I was looking at franchises that were even more, but let's just say here's a franchise that's $500,000. It's $200,000 out of pocket. Let's say I'm even going to put a little bit extra in. And so that could be $200,000 I put into a mutual fund, or I put into a real estate deal, or whatever. Now this franchise I'm going to put in, of course, I'm going to have to put a little extra work in. I got to go to their franchise training. I got to, but my goal and dream in my life is I don't want to just own one. I wouldn't do it for just one. My goal is master this thing and then go buy 20 of them, 30 of them over time and grow and build a portfolio. And then one day probably sell the portfolio. And so I was looking at this one franchise, okay, $500,000. And I'm looking at the numbers and it was like, hey, you can make 150 net few years in, right? Now, I hadn't done my full due diligence. I kind of was rough ballparking, and that wasn't their best numbers. I took their best numbers and I was like, all right, let's get to 150. So in my head, I'm thinking, I'm 200 in cash, right? Of course, I have loan debt for the rest of it. And I'm like, dang, that's a really huge cash on cash. Even if I don't make 150 and I make 75, as long as I'm not daily involved, I'm like, that's still a huge cash on cash. Even if I don't make 75 and I make 40, I'm like, that's still a huge cash on cash. And so that I was doing my math where I was like dividing by 2, still good. Dividing by 2, still good. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. Like I should be looking into this more, and just confirming that, Marty, I wasn't like out of completely left field. Like that is possible if with the right opportunity and the right thing. Okay, got it. Yeah. So let's use me as an example, Marty. I kind of want to go through a quick fun exercise and make this all about myself now. So here's who I am. So I have a great net worth. I am liquid. I have time as my commodity. I don't have much time. I run multiple companies. My skill set, if you were to ask me, is marketing, lead generation. I mean, I can Facebook ads, Google ads, copywriting, creating advertising material. I enjoy it too. Online, anything to do with online funnels, generating leads online. That's my shtick. That's what I'm really good at. Time is the one thing, right? Now, the nice thing is my wife, she handles more of this side of the business. So of course, right now we have a little baby, but over the next year or so, she's going to be kind of getting back in. So we were looking as franchises where she would be the more active participant, but I also don't want her having to get up at 6 a.m. and run to go, pick up a bunch of frozen chicken burgers from such XYZ place to bring them to the franchise. So even for her, I want it to be more like she checks in, checks out. Passionate. We're very passionate about education. My company's name is Learn, misspelled Lurn. My wife and I have a particular passion for youth, for kids. We actually had looked at one particular franchise, which was a coding academy, which was teaching kids how to code. The reason is I have a 24,000 square foot facility here with open space. We have actual facility where I run my own events for adults. So we have like space where we were thinking of taking some of it, carving it out and using that for the, so I'm just trying to give you a brain dump of some of my assets, but I'm going to turn it over to you. Ask me some questions because I'm kind of curious what you think the top opportunities are passive that, where maybe money is not as big of an issue, but more like passive is like what we're really looking as passive as can be.
Well, what's your superpower other than marketing?
Oh man. I don't know how to answer that. Can you give me some examples of what someone would say so I can kind of get on the lines of what you mean by that? Like, because I would jump to say
managing resources.
I'm very good at hiring.
Finances.
I have a degree in finance. I'm not very good at finance. I'm very good at hiring people. I am good at leading. I'm a very macro leader. I don't micromanage. But I'm very thorough in finding the person, and then I'm very good at kind of empowering the person. Hiring is definitely good. I would tell you I've built probably one of the best teams in our industry, in our company. Marketing, and then is people would say public speaking or just presenting is a big superpower of mine. I don't know if any of that's helping you.
One of the other questions I ask people is like, here you are, you're very successful, and I've been listening. So you're more of an empire builder, right? Because I ask people, where do they want to be in 5 years from now? What type of income would be great to earn? Like, I know that's kind of that, it's kind of obscure question, but really depends on the investment level too. But like, if you had an additional revenue stream of income coming in every year, what would be great if you were able to accomplish that? Is that 200,000, 500,000 a year? What would you like in 5 years reasonably, if you built it up to X, what would that be?
For me, what would excite me would be $1 million a year or more. Knowing it would be multiple franchises. It wouldn't just be one or two. I would expect that.
So you're a multi-unit operator, right?
Yes.
Now let me share one of the things that I do that most people in doing what I do don't do. Okay. So I'm going to share this with you because we won't have time to do this. Okay. So most of my clients, they go in and they have certain categories that they may like. So I have a questionnaire that I ask them to fill it out. There's like 25 categories that they kind of rate how they feel about those categories. And then what I do is that on my call with them, I'm going to go through those categories and I know which ones they're hot on. And we talk about those categories. So what I try to do, my process, number one, I get to know you and your criteria. Okay. That's number one. If I'm going to fit you with the right franchise options and not waste our time, I want to understand you, your ability to fund a business, your skills, your abilities, your goals, like I said. And we talk about the local market because I want to make sure that there's availability. If I come up with some options, I'll make sure that I do territory checks before I come back to you and get you all excited about some franchise that there's no territory for, like Massage Envy. All right. But the other part of it is like you in your life have experienced certain things. When I say franchising to most people, they're going to think McDonald's or Subway, Chick-fil-A, things like that, right? So they don't realize all these different categories exist. I mean, once I get into it, they go, oh yeah, I know Meineke, or I've heard of, this or that. But the fact is I actually have an exercise that I walk them through all those different categories and share with them a lot of information, like here's the average investment level, here's the attributes. But let me share with you some really neat things. So my process would be going through that with you and having you rate what you like, those areas you like. Now, we can't do that today, but you shared with me that this could be something that your wife could be involved in. And maybe, think about this. People make decisions two ways. They have the intellectual side, numbers, facts, data, and there's the emotional side. What's going to make me feel good? I already know you like children. You want to have some positive effect on the community. You want people to love what you do, right?
Yep.
So we have to then take a look at what are those categories. You've mentioned a few already, which I'm a good listener in regards to, education. There's, healthcare, I think, could be great for you guys. Maybe it sounds even pets you'd be open to because you're compassionate, but then there's going to be, huh?
As I would, not my wife. She does not like animals at all. Yeah, she does.
But then there's going to be those things that you would say, you know what? There's not any emotion with this. It's all about the numbers, right? So listen, I think that we'd have to go a little bit deeper. All right, in regards to saying, hey, this is going to be the perfect franchise for you, but you've already helped me narrow it down, definitely.
So. But I mean, for you, it sounds to me like it's a very individualized process. Like you might have 5 conversations in one day and give them completely different. Each of those 5 conversations have completely different recommendations as to which franchise is right for them.
Totally. It just depends on all these different.
So it's not like you've got deals with 7 franchises that are offering you the most where you're like, all right, I'm going to figure out how to put this square peg into a circle or whatever like that.
Listen, here's the thing, like backtracking, and not to make myself sound like a saint, but listen, I was in business 27 years of my life and I really worked hard, independent, marketing companies, and I did well, but I know what it takes to be successful. And I know that, the risks people take to get into business. 80% of business owners fail in the first 5 years that are independent. Okay. 80% independent business owners fail, like guys like you and me that tried something. And, every time you screw up, it costs you time and money. Okay. Now, I know that most of the people that I work with, even if they have a high net worth, they work hard to get there. All right. So I mean it. Yeah. I custom fit, I custom tailor my recommendations to exactly, I have no go-to brands. I mean, there's brands that I know are strong performers and I have some higher degree of confidence in certain brands. Okay. But it's really going to depend on, where people fall in regards to, what their goals are and kind of what their passions are, that mix between intellect and emotion, and what we end up with a little bit.
Last question on this. So a lot of these franchises, as I was listening to you talk about like hair care, so I want to review for everybody: hair care, pet care, child education, automotive, medical, home services, senior care. As with any business, obviously, people is an important thing. Now, in my business, not thank God, in the sense of I have access to international audience. I mean, international talent. I can hire people from Philippines to California to any country, and we do. And it's been a great value add. COVID happened post-pandemic, and you heard about a lot of local businesses struggling, not able to hire, going out of business, especially in the restaurant industries and other things. Has that rebounded a little bit, or are you still, because I just get scared, right? You open hair care, what if no one wants to work there? Like, is that kind of, are we past that now and people are back to work and
Not totally. No,
no?
not
Okay.
totally.
So,
I think
so
certain industries are, certain industries and certain markets, I think have challenges. Okay. So not totally, but I will tell you a lot of franchise companies, like a lot of the service, it comes to mind, like many of the service companies, they help people hire their technicians. Okay. And they have all kinds of job resources to help people get hired. Fitness, some of the big fitness franchises, they find the lead trainers, and then that lead trainer will hire the people and train and certify the people under them. So there is definitely assistance in the human resource side of the business, but in regards to certain markets, I think it varies from market to market.
yeah, no, and I think I wanted to put that out there because I wanted to make sure people are aware of that is a challenge. I have a friend of mine who owns a pizza place, amazing pizza, very unique fusion pizza. It's their own, so it's not a franchise. And one of their biggest struggles, I mean, him and his wife own it. He's in the front answering the phone calls, and his wife's in the back making them because they struggle to hire. And I've always wanted to ask him, I've never asked him this, but I've always wanted to ask, like, well, what about Domino's and Pizza Hut and Papa John's and all these? Like, I wonder if they're having the same problems, or did they address that? Is there a system at the franchise level to help kind of bring employees in so that the owner's not answering the phone calls?
Here's what I say to that. I don't know if it's only, it may not fully be the market. It may be him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, and he would say it too. He would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that's a big mistake people make. Like I shared with you right before the show that my family started a franchise that I was involved in, opened hundreds of stores post-net, like the UPS stores, right? So I would consult these owners and I would find that some of them were working the counter. And I said, all right, so you left a job paying, 80 to 100 grand a year, whatever they left, and now they have their own store and they're doing the work that at the time you could pay somebody $10 an hour for or whatever. All right, so I'm saying, be careful if you get into this business. You'll find franchisors, they have best practices. All right, and what's good and what we didn't talk about much is this: in a franchise organization, if there's hundreds of other franchisees, these other people have been where you've been. They're there to help you. There's a community, there's a family, and a lot of franchise organizations, there's this culture and willingness to help each other out, which is a huge benefit.
Oh man. Whew, that is awesome. This has been a fascinating episode, specifically for me. So everyone, if you want to talk to Marty, first and foremost, I would tell you again, remember, there is investment involved. This is different. So if you feel like you've heard numbers and you feel like these are things that excite you, smartfranchiseinvesting.com. That's his site. That's where you can go to learn more about working with Marty. Smartfranchiseinvesting.com. Marty, I've got a crazy 10 days coming up, and after that, you will see me at your site messaging you because I want to talk. I want to go through that list. Actually, I told you, I've been looking at this for a long time. I really think building, and you're right, by the way, empire builder. That's the exact word I would use for myself, is to build an empire. I met recently someone is a friend. I didn't meet him, virtually met him. They own 110 Sonics. And when I don't want to throw out anything because I don't have their permission, but when he told me what they were worth, like what he could sell that for right now to a private equity group, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, wow, that excited me, right? Where I'm like, that didn't require someone inventing an iPhone or whatever. It was like a pretty methodical, like boom, boom, boom way of just over the lifespan building this massive portfolio of assets. That got me excited. So I look forward to working with you and talking to you and learning more and hopefully doing business together. Marty Greenbaum, everybody, smartfranchiseinvesting.com. Marty, any other URLs, social media profiles, anything that you want to throw out where people can connect with you or learn from you?
I'm on LinkedIn. If you put in Marty Greenbaum or Martin Greenbaum Franchising, you'll find it pretty easy. Okay, and Smart Franchise Investing. My email is marty@smartfranchiseinvesting.com. So it's marty@smartfranchiseinvesting.com. Otherwise, hey, I'd love to work with anybody who has a sincere interest and do a little brainstorming with you.
I love it. All right, everyone, there you go. smartfranchiseinvesting.com. If this is of interest to you, as you guys know, there's so many opportunities out there in the world. Just keep listening, keep applying, keep looking, and find the one that's right for you. Do your due diligence and be smart about it. This is Anik reminding you, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Make sure you click subscribe, leave a comment, click like, and on any audio platform, make sure you leave us a great review. Love you guys. Stay safe. Talk to you later. Bye.